Truth invites conflict. That's why most prefer illusion. Miyamoto Musashi. Why are you so scared of being disliked? This constant need to be accepted, where does it truly come from? You've been told a comforting story. Just be yourself. Be real. And people will love you for it. Belonging will magically follow. That if you're honest, kind, and true to yourself, people will naturally accept you. That authenticity is the key to connection. That being real is enough. But look closely at your own life. Is that actually true? Has trying to fit in, constantly earning people's approval, ever made you genuinely happy? Or has it just made you quietly miserable? What if real power doesn't come from being liked by everyone, but from being brave enough to risk being rejected? What happens when you choose honesty over applause? Stay with me. We'll peel this apart, layer by layer. We'll explore what it really means to be yourself in a world that rewards masks. And you'll come to see that rejection isn't something to fear. It might be your first step toward freedom. Imagine this. You're in a room with people you know. Friends, maybe. You're walking together, laughing about something small. And then, you say something real. Something honest. Not dramatic, not loud, just true. And suddenly, everything shifts. They pause. They laugh. But not with you. Or they look away and change the subject. You feel it in the air, a slight distance. A subtle rejection. Not because you did something wrong, but because you showed a piece of who you really are. Or maybe you're alone with someone you care about. You're talking late, and it feels safe. So you let your guard down. You share something personal. A fear, a memory, a strange thought you've never said out loud. But instead of leaning in, they go still. They smile. Politely. Say nothing. And the air goes tight. Careful. No yelling. No harsh words. Just that quiet shift that tells you, even here, with them, there are masks you're supposed to keep wearing. Even in love, there are masks people want you to keep wearing. Here's the brutal, unspoken truth they don't put on inspirational posters. Authenticity doesn't guarantee acceptance. Being yourself, your full, honest, raw self, doesn't guarantee that people will accept you. In fact, sometimes it does the opposite. The more real you become, the more you speak your truth, the more you stop pretending to be what others expect, the more uncomfortable things get. People might look at you differently. Friends might drift. Even family might not know how to respond. Why? Because the world often runs on safe, simple illusions, not complicated truths. Most people aren't in love with the truth. Your friends, your family, even society itself. They usually fall in love with a version of you that makes them feel comfortable. The version that fits inside a box. The version that doesn't challenge their beliefs or shake the roles they're used to. When you drop the act, when you stop playing the game, you're no longer easy to label. You're not predictable. You're not always agreeable. And that scares people. You become harder to read. And for some, that feels like a threat. But here's the thing, that's not your fault. That's not something you need to fix. Because being truly yourself isn't about getting everyone to like you. It's about finding out who stays when the mask comes off. It's about discovering which relationships can handle the truth and which ones only survive as long as you keep pretending. The more real you are, the fewer will stay. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because most people are only ready for the version of you that makes them feel safe. It's a quiet kind of loneliness that can come with becoming who you truly are. But it's also a powerful one. Because once you learn to live without needing constant approval, you finally start to feel free. Why? Why does authenticity scare people? Let's start there. We exist within intricate social contracts, unspoken agreements to keep things smooth, predictable, safe. Authenticity, in its rawest form, is disruptive. It's messy. It doesn't always fit the neat boxes required for easy interaction. Think of Jean-Paul Sartre's concept of bad faith, the deep, existential dread of absolute freedom and responsibility. Most people flee this dread by adopting roles, scripts, masks. They become the good employee, the dutiful child, the supportive friend. When you show up, authentically, refusing to play the expected part, you inadvertently hold up a mirror. Your freedom reflects their own chosen cages, your truth highlights their bad faith, And that reflection is often deeply uncomfortable, even terrifying. It's easier to reject the mirror than to examine the reflection. Now, let's dissect the idea of love and connection. We are fed a fantasy of unconditional acceptance. But philosopher Erich Fromm, in The Art of Loving, argued that much of what passes for love is merely egoic attachment or a symbiotic union, a transaction. People connect based on mutual need fulfillment, shared illusions, or the validation they receive. I love you because you make me feel good, seen, secure. When your authenticity disrupts that transaction, when you stop saying yes to please them, when your evolving truth no longer perfectly mirrors their needs or beliefs, when your depth demands more than shallow validation, the implicit contract is broken. The love predicated on that transaction often evaporates, revealing its conditional nature. Unconditional love is often a comforting lie. They didn't love you, they loved the role you played, the need you fulfilled. There's more to it. Your authentic self, particularly if it embraces depth, complexity, and uncomfortable truths, acts as a powerful mirror. When you speak honestly about your struggles, your doubts, your unconventional joys, you implicitly challenge the curated realities of those around you. People invested in maintaining a facade of effortless perfection or simple happiness often find this depth confronting. Why do shallow connections fear depth? Because depth requires vulnerability, introspection, and the willingness to sit with discomfort, qualities many actively avoid. Your authenticity becomes an unintentional accusation, a reminder of the masks they wear. The rejection you face is often a defense mechanism, a way for them to protect their own fragile constructions of self by pushing away the person who reminds them of the truth they suppress. Perhaps you're thinking, but it can't be that bleak. Surely there are people who do accept the real me. Yes, there are, but the journey to finding them often involves navigating a minefield of conditional acceptance first. You've likely been taught that vulnerability is strength, that honesty is always rewarded. You believe that if you're just good enough, real enough, the right people will flock to you. This belief system, while hopeful, ignores the fundamental discomfort authenticity provokes in a world addicted to performance. It sets you up for that specific, gut-wrenching ache when you realize people loved the version of you who never said no, the version that didn't challenge them, the version that fit neatly into their lives. And so, you resist this idea. It's not fair, you might cry. Why should I be punished for being honest? You might double down, try harder to be palatable while still claiming authenticity. You might search for communities that promise total acceptance, only to find new sets of unspoken rules, new masks required for entry. You might even start to resent your own truth, wondering if it's worth the loneliness. This struggle is real. It's the friction point where the ideal of authenticity crashes against the reality of social dynamics. You've been told ambition, fitting in, being liked is everything, but maybe, just maybe, that relentless pursuit is blinding you to a different kind of power. Here is the part no one tells you, the part whispered only in the quiet corners of self-realization. This journey, this individuation as Carl Jung called it, the process of becoming a whole, integrated self, it acts as the great filter. It necessarily involves loss. To become whole, you must embrace solitude. Not as a punishment, but as a consequence, a refining process. Every time you choose authenticity over performance, truth over appeasement, depth over superficiality, you activate the filter. Those whose connection was based on the mask, on the transaction, on the comfortable illusion, they will fall away. It hurts. It feels like rejection, like failure. But what if it isn't? What if this filtering is the path? What if the loneliness isn't an endpoint, but a crucible forging something stronger, something real? Being yourself means losing those who loved the illusion. Repeat that. Feel the weight of it. This isn't about being unlikable. It's about becoming unmistakably you, and that specificity, that refusal to dilute, is too potent for fragile connections. This brings us to a radical reframing, strategic loneliness. This isn't the passive ache of unwanted isolation. This is the active choice of solitude over soul-crushing conformity. It's recognizing that the energy spent maintaining masks, navigating transactional relationships, and seeking validation from those incapable of seeing your truth is energy better invested in your own growth, your own purpose, your own self-actualization. It's the quiet power of the person who doesn't need the crowd's roar to know their worth. It's understanding that sometimes the most strategic move is to withdraw from battlefields where you're forced to fight under false colors. Authenticity risks rejection, but guarantees freedom. This loneliness isn't empty. It's full of potential, self-reliance, and the quiet hum of your own rediscovered truth. But this path doesn't necessarily lead to permanent isolation. Instead, it fundamentally redefines connection. By filtering out relationships based on illusion and transaction, you create space for something far rarer and more valuable: connections forged in mutual authenticity. These bonds aren't built on performance or need, but on a shared resonance, a recognition of truth in another, a willingness to see and be seen beyond the ego. True love sees beyond egoic attachment. These connections are fewer, perhaps, but infinitely deeper. They don't require you to shrink or pretend. They thrive on your depth, your honesty, your fully realized self. Finding them requires patience, discernment, and the courage to remain true even when acceptance seems distant. And here lies the ultimate reversal, the freedom paradox. You spend your life chasing acceptance, believing it's the key to happiness. You contort, you perform, you wear the masks. But real freedom isn't found in being accepted by everyone. It's found in the moment you realize you don't need everyone's acceptance. Therefore, the very rejection you feared becomes the evidence of your liberation. What happens when you choose freedom over acceptance? You stop being a prisoner to others' opinions. You reclaim your energy, your focus, your life force. The fear of rejection loses its power. Think of the figures who changed the world, often met with ridicule, ostracization, fierce opposition because their authenticity dared to challenge the status quo. Their power wasn't in being loved by all. It was in their unwavering commitment to their truth, regardless of the cost. Rejection is the price of self-actualization. Pay it willingly. Because the alternative, a life lived in bad faith, perpetually seeking validation through masks, is a far heavier price to pay. This isn't just survival, it's the highest form of strategic living. Hold your truth and you win the only game that matters. So, the painful truth isn't that authenticity leads to rejection. It's that authenticity filters connection, shedding the superficial to make space for the profound. It reveals the conditional nature of most acceptance and forces you to confront the masks you and others wear. The loneliness encountered isn't a sign of failure, but a rite of passage on the road to self-actualization and genuine freedom. It hurts, yes. The ache of being misunderstood, the heartbreak of realizing love was conditional, the rage of being punished for honesty, these are real. But they are growing pains. They are the friction that polishes the soul. Embracing this doesn't mean becoming abrasive or needlessly confrontational. It means cultivating the quiet strength to be who you are, even when the world prefers you were someone else. Society loves masks, not the truth, but you don't have to participate in that charade. So next time you feel the pressure to shrink, to soften your edges, to wear the mask for the sake of acceptance, remember, that path leads away from your power, away from your freedom. The sting of potential rejection is temporary. The suffocation of a life lived inauthentically is chronic. True strength lies not in bending to every expectation, but in standing firmly in your own truth, allowing the great filter to do its work. I want you to think about this. Comment below, what belief about acceptance or authenticity have you had to challenge or flip recently? What mask are you tired of wearing? If this resonated, if you're on this path of seeking depth and truth even when it's uncomfortable, subscribe for more strategic breakdowns of the human condition. Click the bell so you don't miss the next exploration. Until then, embrace the filter. Embrace the freedom.